a child that's been adopted, and they were maybe in daycares around the clock as a baby or an infant or both, and they aren't being fed, or they're being fed junk constantly, nothing real. What ends up happening later in their life is this like need to hide food, to hoard it, put it in places to where they know where it is. The interesting part of that trauma, which is what makes it an obvious trauma, is they're not hungry. They don't want to eat that food. It's this emotional trauma response from starving at a time to where their body remembers it, to where they feel like they're going to not get their next meal, even if they're in a place to where there's more than enough.
It's a protective it's a protective mechanism. It's animalistic. So when you talk about adopting a child like that, the way that like a lot of counseling organizations categorize it is there's families with dysfunction and there's dysfunctional families, because you're going to have some trauma or wounds from a healthy family.
Right.
But there are families with dysfunction. And that's where, like you said, dad was never around. Can't remember mom ever hugging me. Well, that's trauma. Right. And I think the challenging part of it is, especially as a guy, is who wants to sit there and be like, my mom never hugged me? Who wants to say that out loud?
Well, and you guys don't have to, I tried to tell men, you don't have to feel weird, or women too, about saying this. I said this to you guys recently, is I had a great mom. She passed away on Easter. But my mom grew up in a household to where there wasn't a lot of like hugging and I love yous. It was almost like this, well, right? Which that's not a healthy place, really, as we get older and learn. Like, that's not the way we want it to be. Although I know the people involved in that, and they didn't mean it either. But it was probably part of their scenario, And so with me and my mom, I tell people all the time, I think I remember one of the first times that my mom and I did like a real hug, love you scenario was in my very early 20s, maybe 20 or 21. I'm getting on a flight and I'm going to be gone for a while. I don't really remember anything like that before, but I also never sat around all the time going, my mom doesn't love me. Even as an adult, I never did it. But they will tell you, they as in the experts that, measure trauma and they study it, is that when you have situations like that growing up, there are reactions to it. There's usually statistically very possible things that are going to happen later in someone's life that are kind of almost like this almost reflection of not having whatever that was.
Or having too much of the wrong thing. One of the great examples of that, you've heard of walking on eggshells, right? By the way, I didn't know that was a real thing. And I knew.
Would it even hurt? I've heard that before, and I'm thinking.
But you know how many sayings we have that come out of nowhere, right?
Walking on hot glass. So that should be the saying.
I popped off at a men's group about it, and somebody owns worked on a farm. They're like, yeah, if you go out and there's a bunch of broken eggs, they stick in your feet. Like, don't ever
because they're dried up and they become like petrified.
Yeah,
I get it.
And
now.
you got little shards of like fiberglass.
That way, like hard because they have yolk on them that's like been touching them, and it's like
then they just dry out there. I was just thinking of like you drop a bunch of eggs on the kitchen floor and step on them. Okay. I'm always like walking on eggshells is like, okay, so name something more easy that I have to do. I always thought like walking on hot coals or like being around you is like walking on hot glass. But that doesn't sound as good as eggshells, apparently. So whoever made it up, made it up.
Somebody's saying that they're living out their trauma on you, or you really are screwed.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was giving an example of is when we talk about walking on eggshells, and I'll give mine, is my dad caught it. When the kids have the like walkathons and they're raising money, or they'll do
school fundraiser
for cancer, and they have the adult dunking tanks.
Yes.
Well, when I couldn't walk, my dad was coach, physical education teacher, elementary school, and they were going to do one of those educational walks. And they were unloading the dunking tank, which is like 1,100 pounds. My dad's a big guy, but not that big. He was 6'4", and the kids were playing around the unloading dock, and it started to fall. It was going to fall on the kids, so my dad ran up and grabbed it. Well, he held it out of adrenaline, but it cost him vertebrae in his back, did a botched back surgery. And so when I grew up, my dad was functional and always there because his dad never was, right? That's the trauma thing, too. I will never miss anything because dad never made anything for me. And but he was always sharp and didn't have a lot of capacity for me doing the wrong thing because he's on, like, Lortab and Soma.
Yeah. So he's low patience.
Yeah, and so in my adult life, like we were talking about families with dysfunction. Well, because of that, and because of him finally being able to go to sleep at night and be a light sleeper, because it was hard for him to get rest, I'd get chewed if I'd wake him up going to the bathroom. You're like a 6-year-old kid trying to go to the bathroom, right? So it wasn't a drag out, but I was constantly in trouble. And so what it caused in me is anytime there was conflict in a room, I won't show it physically, but for so many years until I got some counseling, I was like, my anxiety internally was through the roof. And so I'm managing all this anxiousness for everybody, because
you're like living your life in this place to where as if he was watching.
Yeah.
Like it's like, because you're almost like molded.
Well, and here's one of the most important things that everybody that you've become a professional, you've really worked on yourself up here. Maybe you haven't seen a counselor. This is the thing that set me free. I'm like, I don't need to forgive my stinking dad. You know what all he overcame, everything. Dude, my 6-year-old self didn't know what he overcame. The 6-year-old boy didn't know all that stuff. He just got in trouble a lot. And so I had to go back and get some counseling so I wasn't anxious every time there was conflict.
Isn't it crazy how forgiveness is connected to basically everything in life? I mean, even recently working through a process with Tara is this idea behind forgiving God for the things going on too. And the premise on that, I think, is a lot of times we have this, maybe not outward, I may not ever say it, I can't believe God did this, but our subconscious has these thoughts sometimes. It's like, man, I just can't believe he let this happen.
Yeah, where were you?
Why were we?
Yeah.
And so the process of forgiving God is even a thing to where it's like, hey, God, I forgive you too, just like I forgive myself, just like I forgive these other people that have hurt me, because you didn't actually do that. But that doesn't mean I didn't build up a little bit of, like anxiety against you, some
callousness,
like, dude, I can't believe you've let this happen over and over and over. And I was just having this conversation a couple of nights ago with a buddy we talked about the other day, my friend that lost his son. And it's like, can you imagine going through this process of something like that? And like, who do you blame? Well, subconsciously, no matter who you are, there is a chance that you're going to start thinking, I just can't believe you let this happen. And now all of a sudden, we're starting to build up a little bit of friction with God on things, even though we're not willing to outwardly say it. Our subconscious is thinking about it. And I just thought that was interesting how forgiveness is connected to everything.
Well, and humanity wants to put blame on someone, whether it's yourself or someone else or some other being.
Right.
Everything has to have a blame assigned to it. So it's like the friend with the son that passed away a couple days ago. It's like, does he blame himself? Does he blame his kid? Does he blame the Lord? Like, because someone has to be assigned blame. It feels like in the human condition.
It's a really hard place to be, because I think as a parent, and then the one we're talking about right now was a great dad. He was love. He was a good teacher. We all make mistakes here and there, but he was a great dad. And ultimately, what he has to hear is that, dude, this is not your fault. This is not God's fault. Things happen. They happen. It's how humanity works. We're just not going to live forever. And ultimately, we all have this situation in which we're going to pass on. And I mean, do our decisions have weight in those? Probably. I think this way, and it's like a lot of people think God's already got this plan to where everyone's kind of deaths are already scheduled. I don't know. Dude, I don't know. I mean, babies dying, kids dying. I mean, why would God go through the whole process of getting them here, through the whole process to then take them at age 2?
Bryan just got like deep.
Well, I mean, I don't know the answer to that kind of nonsense, I just like to make it a little simpler. We are ultimately going to die. I don't know what's scheduled and what's not. I do know that there's a better chance of not dying if you don't go skydiving. This is just risk analysis, Thad. You and I do this. I mean, everyone starts off at 0, right? and then we build points against them. If they want to buy
and the
like
insurance
life
thing,
insurance,
right? So what questions would you ask me that were high risk
what
if
do
I was
you
getting
know?
insurance?
The basics are going to be height, weight, age.
Have you ever had
We want to know if you
stroke? Have you ever had tumor?
Hey, can I be pissed for just 1 second? Because I weigh 230 pounds. And so, like, what does the insurance company do? Because my body mass index is not equal.
Well, so
it
what
says I should weigh like 160 pounds at 5'11".
Yeah, life insurance is not built upon what the health industry thinks is good and healthy for you. If you were a high-performing athlete that looked and felt great, they don't care about that. They're actually looking at what is flowing through your veins. So I've got, you guys ever hear of these Iron Men? They're maybe some of the most in shape people you've ever met die of heart attacks. It's because they weren't out of shape. They just either by heredity or some weird intake on their own that their body hated had corroded veins. And so what the insurance company's looking for a guy like you, Kellen, because I've had to fight for these a number of times, is they know that you think you're in shape. And you might be. But lots and lots of people that look like you aren't. They can just lift heavy things.
They're also going to ask you, like, how many times a week do you work out? And if you say 6 and you say, I'm 6'1", 230, they're going to be like, that kind of checks out.
6'1", by the way. 6'1" would be cool.
So aside from your personal,
well, I'm
now.
Over
aside
6
from your
foot club.
personal data, what they're going to ask, the number, the thing that comes down to is going to be the second most important thing is, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And if you say, I fly planes, personally or commercially, those are different. You fly personally, that's more dangerous. Commercial means there's a lot more processes that have taken place outside of your control
Checks and
to
balances.
prevent accidents. And then if you say, I work on an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic, bye.
Do I get better insurance for vaping over smoking?
They hate both, but vaping is just as bad. Actually, insurance companies hate, what they hate more than the nicotine and the smoke is that vapes blow up in your mouth.
Oh, that's scary.
It'll kill you. So it's just another risk
Let's
tool.
get off the vapes.
It's a risk tool. So it's all about checking out the risk of doing certain things. So yeah, you're not going to get life insurance, dude.
Well,
but if you really need it, I can help you probably.
I know you can, yeah. Anybody that needs life insurance, call Bryan Smith.
Call us up.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
but outside of that,
for me.
so that coincides with, you guys have to think about death a lot, right?
That's
Yeah.
a death conversation.
And when people die, I want to track back to what we're talking about is there's some unforgiveness. And in real trauma, the world lies about everything. Let's just get that clear. And I've lived long enough and worked with enough people that's 100% true statement. If you're living on the majority frame of the world, you're in the wrong bucket, and that's why you're stressed out and panicking and you're super busy. But when we talk about death, you can't just say, yeah, you probably need to forgive somebody. You actually have to start forgiving people, because the world will say, it's just in your head. No, it's in your heart. Unforgiveness lives in the heart, and it can poison your heart, and the heart feeds everything. Like, think about it. You talk about people having a heart attack. It feeds blood to everything. And so it's a bigger deal than that. And I think it's super interesting. I've had to forgive God too, of the seasons that I missed out on, the seasons that I was hurt by people in counseling. Like, I had to forgive God. You want to know a fun fact? I think you already know it from some counseling. What finger do you tap on when you forgive God?
Oh, it's like your pointer to...
No, it's your middle.
Oh, is that? Yeah,
It's
okay.
the- it's that-
for some reason, I was thinking my wrist. But
It's
yeah,
that center
it is.
line. See how the world lies? They say like the negative finger is we claim that one too, that we just flip everybody off with our middle finger. I think about that every time I forgive God. I'm like, that's the center line. That's what keeps balance.
I mean, I still kind of every once in a while will use it for bad.
At least you're honest.
But, whatever. I mean, people, get, what is it called, that whole phrase? You mess with the bull, you get the horns. And so, at least one of them. Actually, you could do two. The old Nate Diaz.
Yeah, just take your hands.
You can get them that way.
Just take your hands forward.
Get them like this.
That should be
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Just get it all.
Up there like this. Yeah.
Just get it all.
That should be
So,
an insurance question. How frustrated do you get with driving, where you take your hands off the steering wheel?
what happens to people that make you mad? I think about that question, though, as man, we're all going to die. And I just can't get away from it. When I think about we're all going to die, because I get asked this so much having deep conversations. When you steer into hurt and pain with people and they're feeling it, you better get ready for questions that suck. How is God even real if he lets this happen? what kind of God would let my son die of cancer? What kind of God, and it's like I get to thinking, okay, guys, in the heat of the moment, I've got to calm down too, because if I hear those questions, I can start to feel that nonsense. Even going through that with Legacy for a little bit, feeling other people's pain with them, I can feel like, yeah, God, what are we doing? And we've got to be reminded, if we can dumb it down in those conversations to simply this, hey, I know you're feeling that pain, but I want you to know God didn't do that. See, a long time ago, the enemy left and was kicked out of heaven. And due to that battle that's ongoing, was given leadership control over us, the earth. Well, not us specifically, but human.
We gave it to him. That's where people miss it. They want to blame, and it's fine. You can forgive God. But if you, and there's different religions, but if you say I'm a Christian, then you need to read your Bible. Most don't. I ask that all the time, by the way. I ask a bunch of guys, like, hey, what do you do? And they'll tell me, and then I ask them if they're a Christian, and do you read the Bible? And like half of them don't. I'm like, that's super weird. Like, you know a lot about insurance, but nothing about the Bible. In the beginning of the Bible,
that was a personal attack on us, Thad.
We were given a lot of not bro. we were given a lot of authority, and power over the earth, and then we gave it away because we wanted what looked desirable, what our emotions told us to take.
Right.
We cared more about our answer than what God gave us as truth, and God said He's holy, and so there was a separation. What people miss is in this complete separation is God decides to come back, and my question would be like, why? And then Thad was exactly right. When stuff hurts really bad, instead of us growing and being adults and working through stuff, we just blame somebody. And then we get super toxic in an area and we wonder why. Well, because we falsified blame to somebody else. We took no ownership. We didn't work through whatever deep emotion, by the way, God gave us to really work through and say it out loud. And then we didn't go to somebody a lot smarter than us to get some help, right?
Right. But yeah, I mean, look at like the original sin of the world and you go, Adam immediately blamed Eve. Like, it was immediate blame. Like, hey, there was like, you want to look here at that, we are, blame.
Hey, you want to look at that differently? So they called Jesus second Adam. He did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And for all of us, for the billions and billions and billions of people that all did wrong, we've all lied, stolen. God calls that sin. He calls it separation from holiness. And he lets us all know He's holy. So we've separated ourselves from Him. Jesus dies for that. Right. If you go back to the beginning, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is super interesting in man's role, because we can't blame the woman. Adam miscommunicated to Eve. They're like, well, strolling through. He's like, by the way, don't touch that. That's what I remember from my poor listening skills. No, don't eat from it, is what God said. Yeah. He didn't communicate with her well. And when she looked upon it and it was good to her and she ate it and then told him, which he thinks she's super hot. Let's get real.
They ain't got no clothes on. They ain't got no clothes on. He's definitely thinks she's super hot.
Then he ate from it, right?
Right.
This is where it's interesting. God shows up. And He asks, what's happened? And what did you do? And instead of Adam saying, this is me, take me, you brought it to me, I own this, I didn't tell her, and then I even took it knowing it was wrong. Take me, leave her, like spare her, which is what Jesus does. He says, God, take me, spare them all. And that's why people argue, like, why is Jesus the only way? Because God is holy, we separate ourselves, and so Jesus covers it. So if you denounce Him, there ain't no way back for you to clean your own self up. Adam should have done the same thing. The man should have owned all of it and said, take me as the sacrifice. You entrusted me with it. You gave me all authority. You gave me all the communication, and I failed in every area. But the flesh, immediately, we bring it on, and people miss that. The second he ate that apple, no, it's your fault. I'm blaming somebody for something that's really toxic. And then they lived out the consequences.
But I mean, like, I feel like that set up the whole human, like, I don't know, experience of like something goes wrong and there has to be a level of blame that is bestowed upon the wrong thing. So,
but it's not healthy,
right? It's super not healthy. I'm not saying it's
I
healthy
love
at
where
all.
You're going with that. You're absolutely right.
But it's like this whole human experience from one experience was like, it was her fault, and then we just continue to blame forever rather than going.
Then she blames the devil.
Like, hey, man. That was me. My bad. I screwed it up. And like forever it's been, we've got to put blame. But going back to your friend, it's like, does he blame God? Does he blame himself? Does he blame his son?
That's like, not how you get healing. Yeah.
There's three ways of assigning blame there, and none of it is like a healing circumstance for him at all.
We have a lot of this like God blame, and I liked it, and I heard this the other day. I can't remember who was involved in this conversation, but I don't think you were involved in it, Kellen, but maybe you were. So we're talking about blaming God, and then you get into this place when you're having like that hard conversation with someone like, how can I just believe in God? I can't see him. I don't know what's going on with him. And you know what's really
great conversation to have.
Well, and here's what's insightful about it is, so God sends his son as a conduit to him, right? For us. We're embattled in a constant spiritual battle, whether people want to believe it or not, with the enemy over the souls of man as we, work through God's timing through the Bible. And then ultimately what we have is this, why can't we see God? Why can't this and that? And I heard a great example of this the other day. God said, you can't look upon me. He's too holy. You can't actually see him. And he sends an example of that, of himself in the burning bush.
With Moses, yeah.
Which is like, almost like his shadow. You can't look upon me with human eyes. I'm too holy. I'm going to show you me, but in the form of like my shadow, so that you can at least feel the presence, but no one can look upon me. And that makes me think, what's cool about that is we have examples of God being real. And what I try to do with people as we get into this weird place that they're struggling and they're hurt, to where it's like, there's no way God would let this happen. He must not be real. It always circles back to, God didn't necessarily want this to happen. He never wanted any of this to happen, if we're going to be real. This is all like this domino got kicked over a long time ago, and they're just still falling. The dominoes are still falling over because of that decision that was made. We're still making the very same decisions that Adam and Eve made back then.
And I like to go back to the garden really quick. Here's something really important to see. In the beginning, God made. He never took. Adam and Eve let things in that were never meant to be here. Death and sin were not meant to be a part of creation, but in our free will, we let them in. But all the people's like, well, God did that. No, God never. In the Bible, he doesn't take all that stuff away. He created. Yeah. He gives life.
It would be really weird for him to have created all that to like gaslight you with it, kind of like, I think it was like this simple thing that people are just going to believe it or they're not, but God not only is loving, he's also just. There was a particular process in which he saw this going. And when it gets out of order, you leave almost like his domain for your own. This example of God meets you halfway, that's kind of a thing, I think, to make it apparent that God is always there and available as long as you're willing to grab that hand too. I mean, if you picture like a hand coming out, it's always there. What it doesn't do is it doesn't necessarily force you to and fro out in of everything. He wants there to be a relationship there that's built on love and peace and like reciprocating relationship. But if you're not interested, it's almost like he's still there. But what you're doing is saying, I can handle it. Okay, well, the world has been handed over to the enemy. You have power. You have spiritual, supernatural power through me to battle it. But at the end of the day, he kind of has this fake deed to planet Earth a little bit because of what's happened in the past.
Well, I think the other tragedy of that, because I've worked with a lot of people, is if they're not rejecting God all the way and they'll all do all of it, they don't like the thought of God because he needs to come into the frame they've created, the parts of their life they like. So here's a really good example of what happened. I'll take my son, for example. He's like, yeah, like, Dad, I need your help, like, to get me over to my friend's house and to buy me dinner. But I don't really like the fact that you won't let me eat all the cookies for breakfast and that I can't sit on my VR for 6 hours. If I had it my way, I want you to be my dad if you'll take me everywhere I want to go and I get the VR all day and the cookies for breakfast because I know what's best for me. And from that position, no, you don't.
Yeah, that's what we do with God is, God's horrible or that's not real because he doesn't agree with everything that we want to do.
Yeah, and you
I
look
want to
like
live
a
this
10-year-old that's throwing a
lifestyle.
fit.
I want to do this. I want to make this. That I'm not going to serve a God that's not okay with everything being okay.
You know what I find out a lot? Like, if you'll listen to people, we talked about deep conversations in the last podcast. If you'll really listen to people, you know where they get? Because I asked them the question. I'm like, man, yeah, I get you. Like, you're pissed at God. You see these people act this way at the church. Like, I get it. I've seen it too. I don't like any of that. I'm on page with you. Hey, when you were growing up, where did religion come in? And I've had multiple adults with a lot of common sense share openly with each other. And they, like, an hour later, they go, holy crap. Like, half the stuff I feel comes from when I was like 6 about what I was forced to do.
Dude, Kellen, that's such a good point. Here's why. I bet you could line up 1,000 people and ask that question to. And there is going to be such a high percentage of people that, because of the way we're programmed as humans and control and empiristic thinking, almost all of these people are going to share from a place of very structured rule following. This is how it is. This is what we do. This is our tradition. And almost no one's going to be able to explain to you God's actual love for people in that relationship. It's not going to happen, because I can tell you right now, I haven't heard it very much. I will say the church I go to has gotten way better at demonstrating God's love, because I think what happens in the church now is people get worried that if we go too far on this, like God's grace and God's love, that we're going to lose people on being able to live however they want. It's like this constant tug of war with the rules.
Not if they read the Bible. Paul was really clear about it. Should we go on sinning and boasting so that all glory be to God? Surely not. Like, it's answered multiple times in Scripture. We don't have to hold people accountable to like hyper grace if we would just sit with people and have them read and understand the Bible. Because then they would say what I actually heard somebody this last week say, which I thought was super cute in the men's ministry side of things. Started living with a woman, and he's like, well, why are you going to demote me? I've done this and that. I'm like, bro, you know the Scripture. Like, why are you trying to take this to me? You're saying, I want God to operate in this parts of my life, but I want this right now, and I don't care what God thinks. And you can. I don't care. You're just not going to do that from an influence place and use the name of Jesus.
It's going to be really tough, and I think we all struggle with this, and it's okay. And I want to dig into what you just said, because I think it's pretty simple. There are things that we're doing that we've made a decision to do that are wrong,
yep,
and we're saying we're going to do it. Then there's the things that we do because we're still struggling, but we do show a heart of repentance and remorse as we walk through them, as we're praying, as we're trying. That's different.
That's different.
This guy is saying, I'm going to do this thing that I know shouldn't be right. I'm going to justify it and make it right, but I need the Father to still work through my influence. Now, and this is where the world gets messed up, and this is where Christians gets messed up. Then we have this other guy that is struggling like any of us, still wants to do what God's asked him to do, but he's struggling. He's struggling with this or he's with that, and he's praying. His heart position is to the Lord to try to be abiding, but he's going to mess up. But he's constantly has a heart of remorse to the Father, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to quit doing it. And then what happens is people go, those are the same guy. Look at those hypocrites. Those aren't the same guy. This guy is taking advantage of his ability to use words on people and say, this is what I believe, and God's going to work in this way, and this is my influence, but I'm over here deciding that I 100% am going to do something willingly against him. This guy over here is saying, Lord, I want to have influence. I want to do what you're asking me to do. I have a heart for people, but I'm struggling. I don't want to pull myself out of the game because I'm struggling, and I don't think he asks you to. You're still in the game. You're still loving people. You're still trying to minister to people, but you're struggling too.
And I can make this super clear. Like, people, in their flesh, so they don't know the Lord when they're making that statement, whoever's in the church, and they're loving the judgment side of it.
Right.
By the way, Christians are called to judge Christians, not non-Christians, and nobody gets a say, because if you're a Christian, the Bible says that. So into that conversation. But there's a parable by Jesus where he talks about...
And what you mean by that, real quick, is we're to hold each other accountable to what we believe.
Yeah.
It's not my job to go hold a non-believer who's not even in relationship with Jesus to something he doesn't even believe in yet. I'm to love him.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that you profess Jesus. So I find out hypothetical that, man, you get emotional in a bad way. You could have dealt with another business guy, and you guys are manipulating a system to steal from poor people. That's where you're getting all your income, and I find out about it. I'm going to confront you in private. Then I'm going to grab Thad and confront you. Then I'm going to expose you to wherever your congregation is.
To be fair, I'm not doing that. He's making it a real scenario, and I'm not doing that.
You're living this way. You're living this way, but but it doesn't feel good, does it?
No,
because it shouldn't. Because you're called to, again, a heart posture. And so there's a parable really clear on this. There's a tax collector. Okay, the Romans are raping the Israelite wives. They're breaking in and stealing stuff from houses. They're beating the men. They're beating the family. Not a good place in this time period to be an Israelite and a believer. Then the tax collectors kind of betrayed their own people. They're working for the Romans and coming in and taking your money with excess and putting it in their own pocketbooks. They're weasels. And the tax collector in this parable comes and cries out to God, I'm an evil tax collector. Like my heart, like I can't stand this anymore. And there's a Pharisee, okay? This guy that knows word for word, everything's memorized. And he looks over at him, and this is exactly what the church is doing wrong. They're saying, thank God I'm not like that guy. What a wicked heart that is, by the way. What a wicked statement. I'm not like that guy who's doing all these things wrong. I fast. By the way, in public. I have the most eloquent prayers in public. It's all about me, by the way. That's the problem, is it's a pouring out in a sacrificial heart versus a prideful, all about me, but I'm doing all the right things, look at me thing. And that's a broken heart. The Pharisee's in bad shape, and the tax collector is actually fine. God cares about the heart. And I promise you, with that tax collector, after he cries out, you're going to see him be more gentle with people.
Well, you see the polish of the cup on the outside, but the inside's still dirty in that situation. And then, like, for the tax collector, it's like, bro, I'm just trying to, do my job kind of deal.
That's where the phrase, where's the fruit? Like, when you look at a believer's life, no. Jesus did 100% of the cross. You can do nothing if you believe that Jesus is the way to get to heaven. He is the way 100%. He did 100% of the cross. After that, though, there's a change in your heart.
Right.
And so the way you interact with people is going to change. The way you care for people is going to change. So back to that scenario, Bryan, with the person that's caught up in that addiction or whatever, they're still going to have a soft heart for people. The one that's wanting to get it all away, he's going to be sharp. He's going to be short with people. There's no love towards fellow man in the people that just want hyper grace.
Well, guys, the key to this process that we're talking about is going to be heart position around you're going to make mistakes. And we've got to get to a place to where we're bold enough and that we have enough backbone enough to face what we've done. I wrote a quote one time that said, you're here today because of a decision you made yesterday.
Yep.
That's fine. That's fine. You messed up. Everything has repercussions. I've said a couple of times to people in conversations based on my own life, the things we do have different levels of tailwind. Wrong is wrong, okay? Yeah. But the earthly measurement of things has a different tailwind. For instance, if you trespass, you're going to get a ticket. If you get a DUI, you're going to get a ticket, probably lose your car, and probably lose some, some stuff. Maybe freedom to drive and whatnot. If you kill somebody, you're going to lose a lot of freedom, maybe all of it. All of it's wrong. So when we talk about our lives and making decisions, wrong is still wrong. It just has a different tailwind. So you're here today because of a decision you made yesterday. That is going to have a different meaning for everyone. What I'm asking people to do, myself included, is, to be bold enough to go, I did that. I am sorry for doing that. Lord, forgive me for what I've done. And pursue a constant relationship with Jesus around repentance, because he didn't just die on the cross for us, in my opinion, to just repent once and live. We're going to make mistakes all the time. I think he desires to have that position from us that we're always admitting mistake.
Yeah,
that's part of the example you had, though, he was making wrong right.
Yeah,
he was trying to make wrong right. Yeah. That heart position,
even if he didn't do it perfect, it was about the heart, and that's what religious people. There's so many people broken by people that have seen, and they're detested. They find it detesting,
right,
to see people that claim God act the way you were talking about. That just stingy, you're wrong, judgmental thing. Because that's not how we're called to interact with people. Even if you don't get it 100% right when you cry out, you know what God cares about? He's wanting to protect your own heart.
Well, it's the humility position, the humility heart position, rather than the I stand on mountain heart position.
Well, and next
Like,
time
I'm greater than anybody else.
Next time we should dig into this cause and effect around this guy we're talking about. Example number one is, hey, dude, you know inside your heart this is the wrong thing. What are you afraid of? Are you going to lose her? Do you not have control? What prevents you from having a conversation with her saying, hey, it's not okay for us to pursue this way. Let's pursue it a different way. We need to get into that next time because, there's some kind of weakness there or something that's keeping him from doing just what he knows inside is right.
Well, but again, when somebody's like that, for you to ask that kind of question and to care enough about somebody and go, hey, where's this rooted? It's probably fear, like you said.
Yeah.
But they're going to track back and figure out a lot again. And it's not comfortable to be like, wow, I'm 40 and I can tell you at 8 years old that I just thought of a time this happened and I've been living that out over and over again. But what freedom comes from somebody caring enough to ask the question and work through it?
Man, guys, what we've been talking about today is super deep in the way of it's not hard, but it's also not so easy that you don't have to put some effort in.
No.
You've got to have effort. And so I think that it's always important to remind people that are listening, pretty often that ultimately our goal is that people will hear the messages that we're talking about and start to ask questions about what does heart position mean? What does it mean to have a heart position towards the Father? What does that even look like? What does that mean? And we want people to understand that ultimately our belief system is that it's much simpler than you think. Freedom, healing, salvation is all found in heart position is just pointing towards God and the Father and saying, hey, I need forgiveness. I don't want to live this way anymore. It's a simple prayer. And we want people to understand that that's something that they can do by themselves all the time. But if they don't understand or think they know how to do it, that's a really good time. Hit our DMs, make a comment on the page, on the Facebook page, get messages to us. We'll walk you through it. Yeah. It's not rocket science, and we're happy to hold your hand doing it. But you can sit there right now and ask for forgiveness for what you've done. You don't have to be a professional. There are no rules about this. You are essentially saying, God, I want to give you my heart. I surrender. I don't want to live this way anymore.
Well, and for anybody that's super heavy, this started out with something super heavy. When we talk about trauma or loss, that is so heavy. And I want anybody that's gone through that and maybe held on to it, and you're like, it's so weird to forgive God or even talk to God about this because I'm still so mad.
Right.
Don't be afraid. God's a big God, and I've been through this personally. Don't be afraid to call him to the carpet. And here's what I would ask you to do is there's a way that you talk to a friend about how you're mad or what you're feeling or the fact that you don't want to feel. Don't be formal. Just talk to God the same way you talk to the closest person in you, as mad or numb or authentic as you can be. If you call him to the carpet, God promises he's close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. And listen, we can't rub dirt on adult wounds. When people in our life die, when they get sick, when people leave us, when they hurt us, this is stuff that really, really hurts. And the first step is admitting it's there. I would call God to the carpet, but then find somebody in your life you trust. And then Bryan brought this up. There's Plumbline Ministries. If you don't have somebody that you trust with deep stuff, and that's okay. I know a lot of people there, and I used to be there until I got around people with capacity that wanted to live life for other people, not themselves. Man, go find a counselor and just start talking to them. They've given their whole professional career path to listening to you and understanding how your heart and your mind works. It's really important.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. Also, we'll keep links for Band of Brothers in the show notes for men to be able to connect. We'll do it a little bit different today. We want you to listen to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart. We want you to rate and review us. We want you to share it with all your friends. But today, we kind of ventured off into a little bit weirder place. And I just have this weird. I'm so weak these days, dude. I can't get through anything anymore. Don't call me to do anything like super hard.
Tears are welcome.
Hey, it's not weak to have emotions. It's called being a real human being, not a robot.
Yeah, I know. But I think today would be cool to end, Kellen, if you wouldn't mind, because clearly I can't even talk.
Yeah.
Maybe say a quick prayer. People listening today, I think there's definitely a person that has to be listening, I'm sure of it, that's pretty deep in one of these holes. And I think it would be effective to lead someone in that prayer. so that then, not just for their prayer, because prayer is always powerful. What I feel kind of in my spirit right now is that so this person can hear how to pray and be able to replicate.
Yeah, I think too, man, if your heart's heavy, we've got direct message. DM sounds so weird sometimes because of the way people use it, but on the platforms, there's a way to reach out. I would also say, and I'm feeling this, there's some wonky stuff that culture says, and we've covered a couple of them, like death.
Yeah.
Does God care? Why would he let bad things happen? If there's questions that you have that you just want to have a conversation on and you trust to have a conversation, would you list them? And I just wanted to frame two prayers. The first one is just, man, if you're calling God the mat and you're hurting, I just want to pray for you right now, but I also just want to model how you can come. God, man, I just come before you, and I'm so lost. Man, I'm numb from this specific incident. Man, I'm grieving the fact that my mom died. Yesterday was Father's Day. My dad's not here anymore. I don't even know what to do with it. Or maybe you have a dad that, man, you guys had seasons of or a specific incident. You can't even talk to him anymore. And yesterday was just incredibly difficult. Father, I just want to tell you that yesterday just sucked for me, that my heart hurts, that I want to cry, but I don't even know how to. Man, that I've cried so much that I don't know how to cry anymore. I don't know the words, and I don't have the strength to reach out, and I don't know what to do, and I just need your help. God, I just need your presence. I need something, because I'm so lost, and my heart hurts so bad. While I sit here, would you just show up? Would you just show me something? Would you touch me? Would you bring peace into this chaos, please? I'm just being real with you. Would you do that for me? And then we talk about all this stuff, and maybe somebody's been so hurt by people. You go back and say, I remember when religion came up and I was forced to do this, or my parent did this, or the pastor did this, and you just feel a wall in your chest. Or maybe you've just never believed, and you've seen that people that say things about God, they just hurt other people, and they're very opinionated, and you just hate it. God's real. And I just invite you to call him to the carpet, but he sent Jesus as a second time. Sin separated us the first time, and he came back and he resolved it. And he's just telling you he wants to be close. And so what you do to invite him close is you say, you know what? I believe that you created everything, and I don't understand it, but you sent Jesus, born of a virgin, to walk. And I've looked at the walk, and God, he suffered, and he died for me because I've sinned. And I want to turn from that. I don't want to live the life I've been living because it's not given me anything or anybody that I care about. And so I turn that completely over to you. Best way I know how, because I don't know how, but I trust you, God, with it. And Jesus, would you just be the Lord of my life so I quit living for the short term and I learn how to live for the long term. And the best way I know how, I want to live for you. And that's just you acknowledging Jesus, and you're opening up your heart to God. You believe in your heart that Jesus is there. You professed it. It's not a prayer. It's a posture of a relationship, because God wants to speak to you. He wants to draw close to you. He wants to lead you and guide you in the toughest of situations with wisdom you don't yet have access to. And that's our God, and that's what he wants to do. So I want to reframe those two prayers for you guys. And then also, if anything else comes up, one of the resources is prayer. It's just for us to listen and receive. If you guys just want prayer, please let us know.
Yeah. So for all you wild, crazy hellraisers out there, me and you are just alike. And we're here for you. We're here for you. Don't forget to get canceled.